65% of respondents say that they just spend 20 to up to 20% of engineering time on net new innovation. That's a real down from a lot. I'm going to start over from the top. 65.2% of respondents say they spend just 0 to 20% of engineering time on net new innovation. I'm Paul Nashwine, I'm the practice lead and principal analyst, and this is the App Dev Angle. Today, I have two guests that are living the absolute front edge of how software gets built. Deepak, Vice President of Developer Agents and Experiences at AWS, is leading the team behind Kiro, and Steve, Director of Software Development at Amazon.com, running engineering teams that put these ideas into practice in real scale. Deepak, Steve, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Deepak, why don't you introduce yourself and introduce what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Deepak Singh. I've been at AWS for over 18 years. I spent my initial 15 years on the infrastructure side, spoken to a lot of folks in your world around containers and serverless. And as I did that, I got very interested in developer experience. And as that happened was when AI became a thing. And I spend most of my time in helping developers, whether that's inside Amazon, like Steve's team, or our customers, figure out how they can use AI to be really productive. I'll add, I think the craft of building software is changing. And one of our interests, and we'll talk about that today, is how that craft is evolving and what does it mean for just how software is built. I'm super interested in that topic, and Kiro is a means to get to make that craft happen.
Deepak, very much interested in jumping into this right away. But before we do that, Steve, why don't you introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, thanks. My name's Steve Terza. I get the pleasure of coming to work every day and figuring out how we can take this really great technology with AI and apply it to ship more features to customers faster, to make the customer experience better for folks that shop on Amazon and look for the things that they need every day. Like Deepak, I've been at Amazon not quite as long, but for over a decade now, and I've done a lot of different work inside the stores organization, which is our sort of the part of Amazon where you buy and we get things delivered to you. And I kind of got to the point in my career where I was doing so many migrations, sort of that statistic that you shared. I was doing so much work that it was not new innovation. I didn't want to do that anymore. And so I was super happy to take on this role that I have now to figure out how we could not have to do that, remove some of the friction and make it so we could ship more for customers faster.
Well, Steve, awesome. Welcome to the show, both of you. So let me get started. You know, we want to talk about this. This is a very important stat. You know, we've been hearing for almost over a decade, I would say, that a third of developers' time is spent on innovation, only a third, and 2/3 of their time is spent on maintenance. And that should bother every engineering leader listening right now. In our 2026 research, we found that 65% of respondents are spending just up to 20% of their engineering time on net new innovation, right? That's about it, right? And that's not really actually interesting to a lot of developers. The majority of engineering capacity is eaten up by maintenance, toil, integration work, and the things really that keep the lights on, right? But before you account for the cognitive overhead of context switching and babysitting pipelines, and then also waiting on reviews. But here's the thing, AI, Deepak, you brought this up, AI coding tools are everywhere, whether you have co-pilots, chat assistants, inline completions. Every team needs to have something or has something to work with. But yet the productivity gap between the teams is getting real results. Not just ones that AI can, checking the AI adoption box here. It's really about getting those real results. So, this tells me there isn't a tooling problem. Access to the tools doesn't explain the outcome gap. What explains is how teams are looking at how the work itself, right? And how they structure it, sequence of it, and how they hand it off. The workflow, the problem and mindset problem is really harder to solve by, than just buying a new IDE plugin. So Deepak and Steve, I want to jump right into this because, we look at the tool set. I mean, I've been super impressed with Kiro. I've been super impressed with what you're doing from an IDE perspective, but it's not just about that. It's about the productivity paradox. Why do tools access doesn't equal developer productivity? What's going on there? And Deepak, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, and quite honestly, a lot of this has changed in the last 6 to 9 months as sort of these long-running, long-horizon agents have become a real thing. Uh, Steve can talk about what his team does because there's such a great example of it. But the lessons we have learned both within our team, within Amazon, within our customers, customers like Delta and SmugMug who are very AI forward customers, is you can use the same tools, but the results you get can be dramatically different. We've done studies both inside the company and externally, which say like some teams are getting 15 to 30% increases in productivity by some definition. Others are getting 3 to 10 times, maybe even more. In some cases, quite a bit more. They're using exactly the same tools. So why? And it all boils down to, as you alluded to, how you use the tool. Um, a simple way of saying it is, or at least the analysis was, that teams that take their existing software development practices and apply AI sort of as a tool that they add on to that, they'll get some benefit. They'll move 15, 20, 30% faster. But really, the teams that have seen extraordinary gains are the ones that sort of step back and rethink how things are done. They are less about, oh, I'm going to sit and type with an agent and the agent will fill in functions for me, but much more about how can we give agents intent? How can we make sure they really know what to do? How can we give them the right context? How can we redesign our entire workflow around that? So in the case of Kiro, that means things like specifications, which is one of the core capabilities in Kiro, which is let's help the agent understand the problem it needs to solve. What are the things it needs to do? What are the requirements that are in the builder's head that they can then express to the agent and let the agent do its thing? All the way to really have to bring AI and agents into every step of the workflow. I'll give you a simple example. My team, every night, an agent runs. It looks at their Slack conversations, their tickets, their meeting notes, and actually builds a list of things that they need to prioritize for them the next day. It's actually the first thing they look at when they do stand-up the next morning. And it's an agent running as a Kiro custom agent. It's a small thing, but the productivity increases you get as you go over time are super high. But these are the things that make it, which make the difference in like the way you use these tools. And Steve's team is a great example of exactly what, putting that into practice at Amazon scale means. So I'm sure you have a lot more to say about this.
Yeah,
Steve. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's great, Steve. I actually want to talk about what Deepak was referring to, which is the compounding acceleration. What does it actually look like on your team?
Yeah, I'll say a lot of what Deepak shared, we saw in execution last year. So one of our activities was to figure out how can we help folks go step changes faster. In our case, we chose 3 times faster as sort of the bar. And one of the things that we saw repeatedly are the things that Deepak just talked about. It is the teams that used AI and sort of sprinkled it through the development process. They got faster. It was the percentage-wise improvements, though. The teams that said, "Hey, I have these processes. They're all built around people. That's what we've always executed. That's how we've executed." And said, "What if I started from scratch and I figured out what is the outcome I'm trying to get to, but I do that with AI now, and I put AI at the center of that. What can be different? What constraint can I relax?" And the teams that do that, they saw those step changes. We had dozens of teams go through this and see these outcomes. The median improvement that they got was actually 4.5 times the speed of shipping features that they had in the past without this. And I really want to emphasize and call out the spec-driven development piece of this, because one of the things that we see with teams that move really quickly is the need to be able to hand things off to AI and not babysit them, but to actually fully describe, this is the outcome that I want, and let the AI do it and check the results in the end, but not sort of babysit it through the process.
Yeah, and Steve, I love that because it's an accountability piece, right? It's like you're putting this in motion, you're putting it in place. But while we're on the same topics here, I'd love to get your perspective when you look at from a team perspective. Context is really that new code, right? Investing in agent steering and knowledge structure. That seems to be the direction organizations are going. But what does good look like? What does that look like to your team when you put context in play?
Yeah, I think for folks that have used AI, you'll immediately know it's only as good as what it knows about you or about your problem that you're facing. And so when you take one of these off-the-shelf AIs, it has the world's knowledge in it, but it doesn't know how you're working. It doesn't know what you need to accomplish. It doesn't know how you normally do that or what your norms are. And so what we see happening happening and working very well is the teams that focus on getting those processes, knowledge that is in folks' heads in a lot of cases, either written down, shared either as a steering file or as even just a document, a markdown file describing this is what I do and this is how I do it, really unlocks the agents to be able to take on more work. It's not as though they couldn't take on the work, but the accuracy goes up because now they actually have the context and they understand what is it that you're trying to accomplish. And so the teams that have done this well invest time into this. It's not free. You have to put the time into getting this into the right place, but it pays off multiple times in dividends in allowing the agents to execute, because you don't get a result that you look at and you go, well, it's good, but that's not quite what I wanted. Instead, you get something that's good and what you wanted.
No, Steve, you're spot on. I mean, we see that in our research. We see that the market problem is the tools are accelerating productivity, but is it accelerating at the right productivity? So, but Deepak, I want to bring it back to you. You mentioned something about agents. Steve talked about how agents in the context is important. Putting the right prompts in place to make sure you're getting the good input in, gives good output out. But agents as teammates, right? These are virtual assistants, virtual agents, virtual pieces. What does this mean from a human to re-engaged throughput loss, and how do you figure this out?
Yeah. So some of it boils down to it's interesting. At Amazon, we have this term of frontier developer or frontier team. These are people working on the edges of what you can do with AI agents. In many ways, I see Kiro's role being how can we make the median developer a frontier developer, at least make them feel like one. The people at the frontier will keep pushing the envelope. But I think there's a few consistent themes that you need to hit and are important that go beyond the agent. Steve alluded to one. You cannot sprinkle AI pixie dust across your workflows. You have to really sit down and think, what are the ways you need to change your workflows to be successful? And then from our side, from the Kiro side, to think about what are the things we need to add to our products to make these workflows more successful. Specs we've talked about quite a bit. But even beyond that, as these agents run longer and longer and longer, you have to start trusting their output. How can you be sure that you're giving them the best information? Whether it's a steering document or whatever, but humans are still fallible. It's a human still writing it. There's two things that are really important. One is specs are not always a starting point. If you have an existing code base, they can be. You can, as Steve and team have done, reverse engineer that code base to create specifications. But sometimes you just want to interact with the agent with all your information there, and then convert that into. And once you know what's in your head and like, yep, that is exactly what I wanted. Now I can, once you have a picture, you can then convert that into something more formal, like a specification, like a spec. That's one part of it. The other part we spend a lot of time on to build this trust is, let's say you write a spec. We have capabilities in Kiro that apply more mathematical deterministic approaches, because LLMs are anything but deterministic, that basically say, you know what, you've given me information, but my favorite example is based on the information that you've given me, I can't tell if you want a duck or a platypus. All you've told me is I want bill and web feet. Do you need a tail? Do you need teeth, claws? All of that becomes, and the Kiro will actually ask you these questions based on a reading of the spec and applying these mathematical models. The whole goal is how can we help the engineer, the builder, get to a place where the information being fed to the agent is the highest quality information possible, and then help them test it to make sure that the results are really good.
So Deepak, I want to double click on that because this is important. This is, I always kind of use the term that the AI adoption is a know, like, trust business, right? You have to as an organization is maturing in their journey, they have to know, like, and trust that what you're putting in place is going to do and produce the outputs that you're looking for. You're talking about this. You're talking about how this is all working. So you know, some people say crawl, walk, run, but exactly the point that you're touching on here is you're trying to do things, you're giving the data behind it. It's not just kind of, like you said, sprinkling AI pixie dust around. It's really showing the output is accurate. Is that true? Is that what you're saying with Kiro?
It's how do you build trust with the results you're getting? Otherwise, you'll end up babysitting, like Steve said. Like, to stop babysitting an agent, you have to trust it. Some of it comes from giving it quality information. I remember in the good old days of AI, which was like a year and a half ago. The classic question is to get inside a company was, hey, these agents are really good at writing code, but they don't understand our code. They don't know our style. That's not even a question anymore because of things like steering files and custom agents that you can build that understand your way of doing things. In fact, we are at a stage inside a company like Amazon where most of our processes are now encapsulated as these custom agents, which are basically Kiro plus metadata plus steering files, and you deploy them into Kiro, and suddenly you get a Steve agent or advertising agent, like that really understand your works, in just your code base, as an example. But alongside that, at least on the AWS side, we're heavily invested in these neurosymbolic automated reasoning techniques, which are not the only way of doing it, but are a big part of how we can help developers and probably more importantly, their leaders and their assurance software safety assurance teams get comfortable with the results that they're getting from these AI-driven code. That's how you get to 3x, 5x, 10x productivity for your products.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. I get it from a vision perspective, Deepak. I get it from a product perspective. But Steve, walk us through, what it looks like from your engineering primary output shifts from writing code to reading and writing specifications, and how does Kiro make this more practical for you?
Yeah. First, I want to say one thing. I often say to folks inside Amazon, trust is the currency of AI adoption. And so this focus on quality, I can't emphasize enough, because if you can't trust the agents, if you can't trust the outputs, nobody's going to use it. Nobody's going to buy into it. So just urge everyone to think about that. But on the spec-driven development side, I'll give an example of a team, and actually a feature that maybe folks have seen or experienced in the store. So if you've recently purchased something, you've gone through the checkout process and it's sort of on the way, you'll notice if you continue to shop, there's a little blue button that now comes up, and it says add to order. Basically, you can add more products to the shipment that's already coming to you. And it's great because then sort of they all come at the same time. That feature was shipped using spec-driven development 2 months faster than it was originally scoped for using traditional development. It was sort of at the transition point. And so it was a really good example where we knew the traditional estimate and we got to see what happened with spec-driven development. And the team they had to go through some adjustments, right? They had to shift the way they thought about developing. They always went through a design phase, so that was normal. But then shifting to actually writing down, this is what I want it to do. This is what I want it to look like, breaking it down into features and handing it off to Kiro to be able to do the execution and know that the result you got back is high quality. And you can check it, of course, and make sure it adheres to what you're looking for. I'm very excited about some of the stuff Deepak talked about with the neurosymbolic reasoning and the work that they're doing there, so that we can do maybe less of that checking. But that shift was powerful, and mostly because folks want to ship features to customers. And they got to see how, when you use spec-driven development, when you do the right planning and descriptions up front, the AI can cause you to ship these things much, much faster. And so customers ended up with that feature on the desktop 2 months faster than they would have otherwise.
No, very, very cool. I mean, I definitely get the acceleration. That's a real life use case, Steve, that you just kind of talked about. But Deepak, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of noise in the market, right? So when we talk about what's next for Kiro, from AI coding to agentic engineering across every surface, AI coding is in the IDE. What's next? What's coming out for Kiro?
Yeah, I would say in general, we are focused on few areas. The first one is actually kind of simple. There are lots of teams at Amazon that take Kiro and extend it. They add custom agents or they add capabilities. For example, there's this internal project that actually Jeff Barr talked about it the other day on LinkedIn called Meshlaw. And Meshlaw is a personal assistant automation thing. It's kind of like an AI teammate that Steve's team has developed as well. But one of its most common use cases, as far as I can tell, is ticket triage. Like it makes triaging tickets really easy. Or you can build all kinds of experiences on top of it that make sense for you or your team. And it's constantly learning, etc. We are thinking about what can we do to take those practices. We've already done a lot with Steve's team, but there's so many innovative things happening inside the company that extend or build on top of Kiro. And we are constantly looking at what can we take and bring into the product so that our external customers can benefit from it. Because software engineering isn't that different in places. It's the data that's different. And maybe some of your maturity around using these tools, right? Because you've been using them for a while. That's one. We are extremely interested in this concept of trust. We want people to run agents, fleets of agents, longer and longer and longer. The best customers that we have that use Kiro spend the day setting up things up, and then for hours, they run these things. And you've probably heard the joke of people walking around with half-open laptops because things are running all the time. And these things run for longer and longer. And to do that, you have to have trust in the results because we want people to run things for hours, maybe even days. And the third part becomes then how do you access it? You don't want people walking around with half-open laptops. So Kiro looks at things. So we step back and say, how do people interact with these things? So we now have a product called Kiro Web. What Kiro Web does is everything in Kiro Web runs in a cloud sandbox. It's not on your laptop. It's locked down. It's running with all the protections. So if you're in a company and you get all of that, it interacts with your GitHub, soon GitLab, eventually internal Git. At Amazon, it works with our internal Git repository. You can submit all your tasks. You can set up everything. You can give it your steering files. You can then shut your laptop down, get into the train, open up Kiro's iOS app, which is currently available in private beta, very soon, hopefully in the App Store. And you can still start tracking your tasks on your phone. You can edit them on your phone. So I think the way people are going to interact with these agents right now, it's still I'm on my laptop inside an IDE or a CLI, is going to fundamentally change, especially as these things run for days. And you are like air traffic control at that point.
Yeah, Deepak, super exciting. I mean, I'm really looking forward to where it's going. We are coming to the end. There's a lot that we talked about on this podcast today. Steve, any final words you want to add to the audience here?
Just look around, look at the things that you do every day. Figure out, I tell all my teams, figure out something you don't like to do every day and figure out how you can have AI do that for you so you can focus on the thing that you really want to do. I think if you think about how you use AI to give you the time to do the things you're excited about and the things that you are exceptionally good at, everyone will be happy, and of course we'll get more features out of it. But yeah, I just say look at those things that sort of are friction and slow you down, and see how you can use AI to solve that.
Yeah, well, all I can say is we're in a very exciting time right now. It's very cool to be in tech right now. I mean, AI is just changing the world we live in, and everything that we're talking about on this podcast and everything that we're talking about in the market today is really, really exciting times. I want to thank you, both of you, for being on the podcast today. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you,
Paul.
Thank you. And thank you. A big thank you to all of you who've tuned in. We do appreciate you being part of the App Dev Angle community. But for now, that wraps up this episode. But we'll be back next Wednesday with another conversation, really diving into the tools, trends, and talent shaping the future of application development. So whether you're deploying at the edge, building with AI, or modernizing your cloud stack, we've got you covered. So be sure to follow us on social if you have any thoughts, questions, or just want to connect. Until next time, stay curious and stay building.